Awareness or alarmism? You probably now think, well, I've heard the first word, and I think that's important. Have heard the second word even a bit less than the first one. So why is this important, Niels? And I can tell you, when you and your organization have the wrong aspect of the two in practice, you probably are always running around trying to prevent the next fire to break out for just finding out that nothing actually happens. So you're keeping yourself busy with doing nothing that is productive. I give you an example why this is important, because some people help your organization while others pretty much only help themselves. The world is becoming more and more complex. And of course, when you communicate, it has to be well thought through. You know how easy, especially in today's world, and I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of anyone's offended about anything, because that is definitely not true. It just has consequences when you communicate unacceptable aspects, and suddenly you have to live up to the promise of being a good communicator and not just talk about it without delivering on the matter. So when you communicate today and you do something wrong, very quickly this can harm your reputation or yourself, probably the department's or the organization's reputation or the whole company's reputation, and it can take a very long time to get away from the in the first place made bad communication. So how can you do better? Because there's a very clear difference between awareness and alarmism. And I give you a very simple example. I was flying to London. I normally prefer to take the train. However, due to delays in the train system, again, I have to say, unfortunately, I ended up being at the airport. At the airport, I found out, because I always book economy class flights, at the airport, I found out that I was upgraded. Nice. Thank you very much, British Airways here. And that included access to the lounge. And I'm sitting in a lounge and I'm realizing around me that there are two types of conversations going on. One type of conversation where they're talking about different developments in the organization and what they're going to do with that. The other one is about this plane is delayed. That's going to be the consequence. We're not going to meet that client. We're not going to get the deal. So one catastrophe after another. And here we have the perfect example of the differentiation between awareness and alarmism. Awareness. Let's do that first. Awareness is always based on knowledge. The goal is to prevent mistakes, errors, bad things from happening, either from your side or from a colleague's side or the organization side. There's a certain background why you do that. So first, any mistake can have negative consequences for you or even for others who weren't even involved in what you did, but suddenly they have to face the negative consequences. And of course, when you tell someone or you help someone to prevent the mistake, you're all learning. The learning organization means you have an organization that constantly gets better. We all want to learn. And that's why it is important that we all seek out, when we learn, that we all get better. And this is the focus of awareness. Awareness is a genuinely positive aspect of communicating aspects where you help people to become better in what they're doing. However, there is the other side of the game. And just next table, it was pretty impossible to not hear them talking because they were so loud. There was, I don't know if it was an assistant or a colleague, but there was a senior executive, body language and also what they were talking about. It was pretty obvious that there's difference in hierarchy. It was not clear if it's a colleague traveling with him or an assistant. But that colleague was constantly saying, oh, there's going to be a delay with that. We're not going to get to London at all, or we get to London later. We're not going to go to the dinner. We're not going to meet that client, and tomorrow they're not available. One thing after another. And that went on for nearly 2 hours because there was a certain issue with their flight. They weren't sure if the technicians show up on time. And what happened was they had a delay of 1 hour. So instead of 5:20, they were flying 6:20 p.m., which still means that you arrive in London way ahead of time to do anything you wanted to do. But hey, let's make anyone go crazy in the first place. And here we have alarmism. The original definition of alarmism is that someone always tries to incite fear with others and then puts themselves in the center of attention how to solve it, at least in their opinion. Alarmism is always based on half knowledge, half hearsay, and a lot of assumptions. As soon as you see alarmism, there is a certain focus of that person to put themselves in the center of attention. And unfortunately, there's a certain background to that. And the first one is, look at me. You want to say when someone practices alarmism, it means that someone says, look at me. I'm the only one taking care of the organization. I'm the only one bringing this organization forward. I'm the only one that can solve any problem this organization has, had, or will have. It is just about me. So it's not about the group, not about the team, not about learning, not about the department, the organization, or the whole company or corporation. It's only about me, me, me. Look at me, pseudo leadership. The second aspect is, although someone doesn't really know what's going on, because let's face it, I give you a very simple example. When someone says, we are not sure when the technician arrives, deriving from that you don't know if the technician arrives at all is also just making stuff up, because they said they're not sure when the technician arrives, so it's sure that the technician arrives. Anyone who's practicing alarmism doesn't really know exactly what's going on, but just to be sure, they are always putting the worst case forward. And when you always put the worst case forward and say, this is a fact already, it's happening right now, people will not listen to you when a real worst case happens. I give you a very simple example here as well. When someone is shouting fire in the building, and 99 out of 100 times it was not fire. When the 100th time happens where fire really is in the building, no one will listen, because they all think, one of these stupid things again where someone makes something up to be in the center of attention. And also, and that's the third aspect of it, anyone who practices alarmism has a billion solutions of what they need to do next without putting any of them in place. So we need to reschedule this, we need to reschedule the hotel, we need to divert the flight, we need to book a taxi, we need to book someone who picks us up, we need to call the client right now, we need to text them, WhatsApp them, email them. Nothing of that was necessary because you didn't have the facts in the first place. But someone practicing alarmism always has an idea in any direction, and these directions always change frequently, only that you stay in the center of attention. So taking all this together, communication needs to be actively and proactively designed with regards to awareness, not alarmism. Awareness is good when you have very clear guidelines and very clear communications. That has to come from the leadership person, of course. People know what is it that we communicate, how do we communicate, but also where are the limits where people simply say, don't do this before you know for sure that X, Y, Z really happened. So don't just run around like a headless chicken and trying to make anyone go crazy just over you running around. There is a very, very simple phrase, because often people say, well, how can I communicate to people in very simple words that probably awareness is a good thing. However, others, alarmism is not. And it's quite simple. Awareness helps, alarmism hinders the organization to excel. Awareness helps, alarmism hinders. So as soon as you have someone practicing alarmism, it doesn't mean that you chuck them out and you all need to make them leave, because that's too expensive. Also, in most countries, not legally possible. And also, you want to be a learning organization. You want to develop people. And that is what you need awareness for. So you train your people proactively to have a better communication in your team, in your department, and in the whole organization, company, corporation. And that's what happens when you practice awareness instead of alarmism. And I wish you all the best doing so. And of course, now some people might have some questions, which I can understand. It's a complex matter. Feel free to contact me. In the show notes of this podcast, you find my contact details. nb@nb-networks.com is my email address. You also find my LinkedIn in the show notes of this podcast. Feel free to contact me there. Second aspect, which I always mention, is we have live sessions where you can just join us. For our listeners, it's at no charge. And when now people ask, how do I find out when these live sessions happen? Very simple. If you go to expert.nb-networks.com, you have the option to sign up there. You only receive one email per week, the leadership letter. And that one email per week includes not only access to anything I published, but also it's 100% content ad-free guarantee. The date, the time, and the access link to get into the sessions is available there. It's available in the English and German language, so feel free to bring colleagues with you. However, the third aspect is the most important one. Apply what you heard in this podcast, because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change happening that you obviously want to see in your team, your department, your organization, company, and corporation. I wish you all the best doing so. If you need help, contact me anytime. I'm available 24/7. And at the end of this podcast, as usual, and for this week, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.